This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy to see if you could save when you bundle your home and auto policies. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary, not available in all states.
On Friday, September 20th, 2024, it's Culture Night in Dublin City. Across the city, people are attending a cross-section of artistic events, from DCC-funded sound system street parties, aerial performances, bands playing on the street, art exhibitions and talks. It's Culture Night, a sample of what Dublin's creative community has to offer its citizens. In Temple Bar, branded as Dublin's creative quarter, but known for its tourist population, the Tola Vintage shop hosts its 4th annual block party to tie in with Culture Night. The black-owned business has been on Fowne Street in Temple Bar for 10 years now, and people are hanging inside and outside the store on the cobble streets, listening to the DJ play. The vibe is good. The guards show up to shut the party down, and things quickly escalate. Gardaí and public order units roll in with batons, brandishing pepper spray and excessive force to clear the crowd. In the aftermath, 3 people are arrested for public order offences. Footage of the Gardaí charging at attendees with batons and knocking one white male onto the ground is circulated widely on social media. In the aftermath of the event, the Gardaí press office cites public safety concerns, saying the crowd was large, unsuitable for the street capacity. The statement also says Gardaí initially engaged with the management of the premises with a view to managing the situation, but received limited support. An operational decision was made to manage the developing public safety issue with the increasing crowd on the street. Members of Gardaí Síochána commenced to engage with and disperse the crowd in an orderly manner. Any actions undertaken by the Garda on the night were solely focused on public safety in a public space. Now, many people who attended say what actually happened was the Gardaí exacerbated the situation, creating an unsafe environment. I spoke to Silent G, one of the DJs at the Tola Vintage event, for his perspective of what happened. So, I mean, you were there last Friday, right? How did it turn into such a violent scene? Like, you were there from your perspective. What happened?
I remember I was DJing, whatever, and I finished DJing and I walked out of the store. And, you know, mingling with the crowd, trying to, like, have a good vibe. And then I noticed that the guards came. There's probably maybe 4 to 6 of them that pulled up. And again, it's one of those situations that I don't want to put it like that, but you're kind of used to it. Every year that we've done it, it's almost like a regular thing, which there's a lot of things that you, I guess, as someone of color, you kind of almost like expect, and it's almost like you're like, oh yeah, they're here. We're gonna do what they say, and then they're just gonna go away.
Yeah.
And every year when we've done the block party, it's always been that way. Whether it be they would tell us to like kind of clear it up a bit, or turn the music down or turn the music off. And we always abide by it. And even though again, it's something that nobody else really has to deal with, but we just do it and get along with it. So I from my perspective, I thought that was what was happening until it just got mad. So I remember I turned around and I saw the guards were just talking a bit longer than usual. So I made my way back into the shop, and at that point it was just hectic. Like Ayuba was trying to let them know that we'll get the space clear, but we're gonna need time. There's a lot of people here, but they just weren't really they weren't really trying to hear it. They like a couple of them, you'd heard them say now, no, now, and it's like, yo guys, like firstly, this shouldn't really be happening. Secondly, we can't really, like, it can't be like right now. And then there was a certain level of taunting that was going on from their side. And then again, like people, they tried to kind of move in a very aggressive way. And of course, that's going to make people react, you know.
When you say taunting, what do you mean? Well, like, what were they doing?
I'm not too privy to what exactly was being said. But certain things were said for other people there to kind of like react. The guards reacted first, so like, and from other people I heard that there were certain things that were said as well. So for me, my main thing while everything was happening in the store, people being pushed around and stuff, my main thing was to get on the microphone and let people know that to actually record what's going on.
Yeah.
Essentially, while everything was happening, I'm on the microphone literally telling people, we do this every single year and they want to turn this off. There's nowhere else that this is happening right now. You know, beside me, there's people telling me to get them to like move on. And of course, we want to get people to move on. But again, it's people that don't understand the struggle that we constantly have to deal with. So meanwhile, while I'm trying to get this message across, there's people telling me, no, just get them to move on. And I'm like, no, we have like a venue that we have an after party for. So once I finish what I'm saying, then we're going to get everyone to go to that venue. Button Factory. So we had a venue there for the after party. So my whole thing was, let me get the message across, get people to record this. And yes, we'll get people to move on to the venue. But yeah, every year I DJ and help run the thing with Ayuba and a few others as well, and it was a weird one.
Is the event always on Culture Night? Usually,
So it's like Ayuba has termed it as the block party. So the block party in itself is literally just a Culture Night thing that Tola Vintage, like it's synonymous with Tola Vintage now.
Yeah. And like, so you're saying like this has kind of happened before. Like, I mean, just on this one though, it escalated, do you think, because they were like, people weren't doing it fast enough, you weren't changing it around, and then all of a sudden I heard that like 15 public order guards came around the corner, and that's when things got really bad.
Yeah, like this is the thing as well. It was so I guess they wanted things to happen very, very swiftly, but at the same time, we're trying to talk to them and let them know that it's not right what's happening right now. And as well, if they want like the space and the streets to get cleared, it's not obviously gonna happen straight away. We have to try our best to get the word out to people to move, but they wanted it right now.
The event happens in Temple Bar, where clearly every night hundreds of people are gathering on those streets.
Literally. Yeah.
So what was the difference there, do you think?
I honestly couldn't tell you.
Did you feel like that area outside was in any way unsafe?
Oh no. And as well on top of it, like when it comes to the type of music that I'm playing or other people are playing, it's not the kind of music to even make you, you know, go crazy, jump up and down, mad. It's like very like, it's always like vibe, or like the most, like in terms of like music and BPMs, the highest that we're going is like 120 something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's not even like the music, the music does not attract the crowd that would act in any way, shape, or form, I guess, antisocial.
Yeah.
You know, so it didn't make sense. And then as well, on top of that, with the public order, with them coming over as well, it was insane. Like, it's literally kids, you know, it's kids. There was a point where I remember there was like maybe a line of maybe 10 to 15 guards on this side, and all the way down 10 to 15 guards on the other side with their batons out, like staring at all of us. And we're kind of like, what's going on? Like, you know, it was very surreal. It was very surreal.
Yeah. I myself actually had put a few events on before in Temple Bar around the corner where the Monster Truck Gallery used to be, which is opposite one of the pubs. Like, handy to do because, and one of the reasons why you can do these things in Temple Bar is because it's so busy. So therefore, you putting on something which wasn't even a late night event at that point isn't really affecting anything because it's already full. The place is already full.
Exactly.
It doesn't really matter. Did they have any, just to ask, did they have any questions about like permits or anything like that? Like, did they ask anything about those things, you know?
No, I haven't been told by anyone if they did. One thing that I did hear from, I think, Ayuba, but this was like on the night, so but one thing that was said was like, nobody asked like, oh, who owns the shop? Nobody asked like these like necessary questions. Nobody asked. I guess they just saw people and then they were like, we have to shut this down, you know?
Yeah. So you mentioned, like, I mean, it's obviously you've experienced things like this before.
Yeah.
Like, all too often.
Yeah. 100%. Like, I don't even need to get into any other events, but just literally just sticking with the Tola Vintage block party on Culture Night every year. It's almost like a tradition where the guards will come and then we're kind of like, okay, cool. You know, it'll take a few minutes for us to like chat to them and let them, I guess, understand why we're doing this, even though there's stuff happening around. And then they kind of just let us be and do our thing. But this year it was not the case.
The next day, Tola Vintage wrote on Instagram, once a year we host a block party outside our store for Culture Night. We invite local DJs, customers, creatives and friends to join us for the evening. We never anticipated the size of the crowd, but the event always wraps up by 11:30 and everyone helps clean up the street. This will be our last year hosting a block party outside our store, as we don't receive the same respect given to other businesses and streets in Dublin. A number of representative groups then put up statements about the event and the things that had happened at it. The United Against Racism Ireland group were one to raise concerns about the Gardaí's strong reaction to the block party, saying, "The block party happens every year in Culture Night, with event organisers having all the correct permits to run it. However, Gardaí chose to brutalise Tola Vintage and the event goers for absolutely no reason other than being black and brown enjoying Culture Night." The statement also says, "From direct provision to the murder of Georgianchenko, the Irish state has for so long brutalised black and brown people. Black and Irish, a representative group who aim to highlight the struggles and celebrate the successes of black and mixed race Irish community, also put out a statement saying, alongside Tola Vintage, we'll be meeting senior Garda representatives in the first week of October. We share in the disappointment from many creatives and event goers, particularly from the black community, who feel like this is an all too frequent thing. However, by working together, we can bring about change so this doesn't happen in the future. Ultimately, An Garda Síochána should be at these events to ensure people there can have a safe and fun time. We stand in solidarity with POC event organisers, creators and event goers who want to make this city and country a fun and exciting place to be. This is the first conversation in what can be a broader discussion around over-policing of the black creative scene in Ireland." The idea that the guards shutting down the party had a racially motivated element quickly became part of the discourse online. This is Temple Bar we're talking about. 50 yards down the road, there's a row of pubs where people congregated outside all the time in very large numbers, yet the Tola Vintage party was targeted with the use of unwarranted force. Now, these kind of events happen all the time, whether licensed and unlicensed. People are drinking. This is always used as an excuse or a reason, but there really was no reason for such a force to be used. All of this is happening in an increasingly hostile environment for Irish people of colour. Last Thursday, September 19th, a gathering of far-right protesters, the day before Culture Night, blocked traffic for more than an hour during a sit-down demonstration on O'Connell Bridge. 19 people were arrested, but the Gardaí acted in a relatively level-headed manner in that situation. No excessive force seemed to be used. Why was a cultural block party in Temple Bar that was given no immediate trouble in any way met with such violence? While violence at far-right protests and the burning of buildings earmarked for asylum seekers goes unpunished. Just this week, the government's Justice Minister Helen McEntee has dropped the incitement or hate speech sections of the Criminal Justice Bill. Despite Ireland seeing an increase in the number of anti-immigrant accounts online and at protests that are verbally abusing people of colour, even those in Gardaí uniform. In a climate of increasing intolerance, hostility and violence towards marginalised communities, what can be done? And how can we support our peers, those in the minority communities in Ireland who say this is an all too frequent occurrence? Well, first we have to listen to what they're saying, that this happens a lot, and it will happen again. The other thing we can do is speak up. One person who spoke up this week is Becca Maloney of the urban culture brand Mo Cultivation. She put up a story on Monday saying, "A lot of our black, brown and Asian friends are sick of explaining themselves and having to spend energy justifying their outrage and pain on topics and happenings that impact their lives. If you don't understand the severity of recent events in Ireland, those of which confirm the systemic racism that rocks our nation and further fuels the far-right agenda, feel free to ask me instead of bothering the people who have to live it daily." So I did ask Becca, as someone who works with people of colour and minorities in the Irish music industry, for her perspective. Here's our chat.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy to see if you could save when you bundle your home and auto policies. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary, not available in all states.
So, Becca, you were sharing online some of your thoughts about what's been happening in Dublin, specifically from the Tola event over the weekend. What was your perspective of all that?
Yeah, well, I wasn't actually at the Tola event. I was in Dublin for Culture Night earlier in the evening, and it was a buzzy evening. I didn't see any guards. I didn't see any issues. I saw a lot of people drinking in the streets, crowds gathering, people having a good time, and it all looked, really wonderful and as Culture Night should be. And I was really shocked to wake up the next morning to see the videos from people I knew and people in my community in the crowds where that kind of violence escalated with the guards. And it was quite shocking, as it was very different to what I had seen other types of people and other crowds enjoying earlier that evening.
So, I mean, did you talk to people who were at it? What was your perspective of what went down at the event?
So I've actually been talking to a lot of people about it since. I have a lot of Black friends specifically who, have started to say something or gone to kind of voice their opinion online, and then actually come back being like, you know what, I'm sick of having to justify my feelings and why this is so dangerous for our city. And to some people, it might not seem like a big deal, or it might seem like, the guards were just doing their job, when really this is not an isolated incident. And this is kind of one of the many things that goes on like in our society that just puts people of color feeling like they're at the bottom of the priority list when it comes to safety or treatment. It's not a guard bashing situation for me. What I'm feeling like I need to be more vocal about is the fact that there's so many little things that happen to people of color in our country that makes them feel unsafe, or that they are clearly treated differently to others. And it's just coming to a bit of a boiling point with a lot of them and a lot of their friends. So I think, having seen what happened at Tola Vintage, like, this is a real time for true allies to step up and to not just say, oh, I'm outraged, on a story on Instagram, and then not do anything about it, and to not check yourself and not change your behaviors. So that's what I'm kind of hoping to see out of this, within myself as well.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, you mentioned other examples of this, because I mean that was one of the things I saw, that you can't say this was a racially motivated event. Certainly, it does not look good for the guards for an event that took place on Culture Night, the only one that was shut down to be by a black-owned business. That's the optics of that don't look great either.
Exactly.
Any way you look at it, but clearly excessive force used. Yeah. In the clearing of a party in the middle of Temple Bar, a place where many, many people congregate every night.
Literally every night. Like, I live in Dublin city centre, and I often would be out working at a gig or something and have to walk home completely sober. When you're in Dublin city and you see it from a sober perspective at those hours of the night, it's absolute carnage. It is quite chaotic in Dublin city, especially on the weekends. So to know that a very cool, young, creative crowd with people of all types there were the ones where a public order unit and a mass amount of guards were sent down to monitor it, fair enough, but for the action that was taken against them. I saw a video, I didn't know the young girl in it, but she could have been no more than 20 years old, literally just in a cute little tee, talking to the guards, and she was literally being threatened with pepper spray to get out of their face, and she wasn't doing anything wrong, and she clearly wasn't intoxicated. She was just exerting her rights to say why do we have to move out of here? And there was a lot of, you could feel the frustration and the emotion in the crowd, because what should have just been guards acting as as their job is to protect people and just move them along safely and calmly, they were creating this atmosphere that got a lot of people riled up. And it was actually a white man who ended up being kind of the video that circulated so quickly. And he obviously felt the confidence and enough emotion to stand up for his friends and stand up for his community and say hey, we're all just having a good time here, why is this happening? And the problem with that as well is a lot of people who don't understand the situation, or may not have enough information about it, or maybe just be ignorant, and let's not beat around the bush, a lot of people are ignorant to these problems, are saying, well, why is everyone calling this a racist matter when it was a white guy who got pushed around by the guards? Well, the fact is that he's a part of the cultural community, and he may be white, but he probably has a lot of friends and peers who are people of color, and he was the one standing up for himself and for them. And racial matters impact a lot of people, and he happened to be one of them because he was in that crowd. So it was quite a violent situation, but there were so many different emotions, and people are taking a lot of different things from it, because we're saying, it's not an isolated thing, and people aren't just annoyed about this, they're annoyed about a lot of things. And so it's kind of bubbling up at the moment.
Yeah. So what else have you seen? I mean, we're talking about an environment in which far right protests are obviously increasing. There's a lot more people being verbally abused, people of color being verbally abused. There's a lot more accounts online abusing people of color, even those in Gardaí uniform who are people of color as well. There's a, the backdrop of all this is the criminal justice bill is dropping its incitement or for hate speech sections as well. So there's a lot of reasons why there's a lot of reasons to worry, basically.
Yeah. No, there is. And I think as well, I mean, the most experiences that I've seen when it comes to unfair treatment or, you know, imbalance in opportunities and stuff, I guess it'd be more so from the industry I work in, which is music, culture and events, where all the time we're dealing, like, whether from an artist point of view or programming point of view, you know, tokenism from brands and organizations, you know, just shouting about Black Lives Matter when it's the 2020 black squares going up on Instagram, or Black History Month, where that's only the only time they spotlight artists, but then for the rest of the year are doing nothing about it. And even like opportunities going to maybe light-skinned people, and saying like, oh, we support Black people, when like mixed race and light-skinned Black people, you know, are also treated better than people who are like 100% Black, for example. So I see a lot of that stuff in the kind of like weird like biases that maybe they're just subconscious for a lot of people and brands and organizations to say like, hey, look, we're supporting Black people, but like, you're not. There's still like this little bias that goes on. So I see that all the time. I see it with little microaggressions against artists, even like, you know, people who don't bother to check how to pronounce somebody's name and just being like, oh, sorry, I don't know how to say your name. What is it again? You know, just those little things that just is an unfair treatment or a different treatment to people who maybe have like different types of names or look different, or even like, for example, I know loads of my Black friends would like often have their hair as like this novelty thing, you know, like, oh, can I touch your hair? Or not having anything to say to people other than their hair. It's microaggressions. It's these little things that kind of chip away at people of color that you wouldn't see normally, but they're dealing with literally all the time. So when something like this flares up, and something like this in the landscape of a place where Gardaí are super tolerant of people who are literally like disgusting racists and exercising like really scary agendas around anti-immigration and racist kind of ideas, that's why it's scary, and that's why it's kind of bubbling up as like we can't even enjoy ourselves on culture night now.
Yeah.
So that's where it is on that scale of like, but why is it such a big deal? It's because all of these things add up, and it is a big deal when you're dealing with it every day.
So, I mean, you're kind of saying, you know, a lot of the show of solidarities from 2020 onwards, like, I mean, really nothing much has changed.
Yeah, exactly. I know a lot of people that I know, like peers and friends of mine, who are talking about this online, who even have the energy to continue voicing their opinions on like why this is so scary or hard for them. They're all saying like, this is just like 2020 all over again, guys. I even saw someone saying like, see you again in, you know, 2028 when something happens. Everyone shouts about it online, it goes away, and we just experience the same thing again. I really don't want that to happen. I mean, like, the changes I've made in myself and how I believe that I'm an ally since 2020 are massive. Like, the amount that I've learned, observed, and, you know, sought out to understand in the past 4 years is quite a lot. I'm lucky enough to have Black friends who I know that I can ask difficult questions to, or to lean on them, you know, to understand better and to check myself and my white privilege. Not everybody has that. Like, not everybody has someone of color that they can turn to and say like, you know, why is this? Or I've been thinking about that, you know, how do you feel about that? But what I do know is from talking to these people who, like I said, are exhausted and talking about it themselves, and also asking them like, you know, why do you think nothing has changed since 2020? And the number one answer I get from them is ignorance. Like, a lot of white people and maybe, you know, Irish people who don't have any sort of connection to other like cultures or ethnicities, they just think like, oh, there's not really racism in Ireland, or I don't know anyone, you know, who's experienced anything like that, or I've never seen it. Or, you know, I have a Black friend, or that I love Black culture, I love Black music, when really, like, they're not looking into what's actually going on. And it's really important to educate ourselves about these things and not just to sweep it under the rug. And as my best friend Mai likes to say, Google is free. So if you ever feel like looking into what's going on in Ireland, Northern Ireland, the UK, a lot closer to home than, you know, the police brutality that we see in America that we think is so far away, the answer is it's not. And it's not just about the guards or the government. It's about how we treat each other. It's about, you know, opportunities, you know, how brands and organizations are tokenistic or, you know, opportunistic when it comes to these things. And it's a lot, like, it's a lot to take in, it's a lot to learn about. But I think it's
Yeah.
our jobs, like, if we want to be good allies and just good human beings, like, we need to understand, like, what's going on there in order to be able to say, like, actually, yeah, I do want to call out someone for being racist, or I do want to check, is my comments or my questions to someone of color actually a microaggression? I'm going to learn that person's name before trying to say it wrong in front of them and not really care or think it's funny, you know. Just little actions like that really can, you know, be a better change, I think.
So, I mean, what do you think is next then for this situation? I mean, we've seen that I'm not asking you to represent everybody, obviously, but
Yeah.
from your own personal opinion,
Mhm.
you know, seems to be a good thing that a representative group like Black and Irish are actually there to engage with the guards. And
Yeah,
I think the problem with that is, you know, I mean, this is the guards we're talking about, so it's very difficult to get
it is.
any. I mean, it's one thing to meet senior Garda representatives. It's the boots on the ground, as we've seen, which, you know, emboldened. You know, last Thursday, O'Connell Street was shut down by a far right protest.
Yeah.
And how did the guards react to that? Well, they, you know, systematically and did their job. I mean, sure, there were some skirmishes and stuff, but generally, probably much more level-headed than the way they acted at a street party, a block party in Temple Bar. So, which was met with much more violence for such a small event. And
it was, yeah. So, I mean, it's a good question, and a question that a lot of, you know, people I know are asking themselves now about how do we not just let this be 2020 again, post our black squares on Instagram and say that we kind of chipped in. So I have kind of a platform / you know, community hub called Mo Cultivation, and we had a little meeting earlier about, like, what can we do. We predominantly celebrate culture that comes from black roots and underground audiences and youth culture. So, you know, we feel like it's important. I mean, like Tola Vintage, for example, and other black owned businesses like that are all, you know, the type of people that we would celebrate, shout about, collaborate with. So, you know, we feel like it's really important to kind of do something. And we're talking about having maybe an event as soon as possible that is going to be an open conversation about how to be a better ally and maybe how to understand what's going on a bit better if you feel like you don't understand and you don't have someone to ask. After I put up my story, which you were referring to earlier, about me saying, like, you know, we need to stop asking people of color, like, why are you so upset and why is this important, because they're exhausted, so feel free to ask me. And a lot of people have reached out to me already. I was actually a little bit blown away about, and some of the things were just like, someone just asked me, like, how do I be better? I want to do better. And that's obviously a big question, and I would love to come together with a lot of people who have the same questions and people who have answers, and to just have, like, an open conversation, even if it feels uncomfortable. Like, it's necessary for it to feel uncomfortable in order for us to, like, get to it. So I would love to keep you updated with that. And we actually have engaged with Black and Irish about it as well. So hopefully more there. And then I think, what are the guards going to do about it? Like, it happened, and, you know, the chances of, like, real action coming from it, I don't know. I can't speak on behalf of the guards, and I'm certainly not guard bashing, because obviously not all guards are the same. But I do think that there are, you know, biases and decision making that comes from fear and maybe lack of education about why are you acting so violently towards a certain group when you're not with another. My real opinion on a personal level is that the guards are afraid of the far right, you know, movement, and the threat that comes from them, I think, is a lot greater than that comes from some cool arty folks outside a vintage store, and therefore their sense of power kind of took over because there was nothing to be afraid of by this young group of literally culture goer people. And then if the guards can ask themselves that, then, you know, somebody needs to address, like, why were we behaving that way to people that are just having a good time and that look a certain way. I don't know if there is even training about biases and decision making in the guards.
That's something that obviously was in the discourse in 2020 about, like, I mean, like ACAB and all that kind of stuff. It's like, because that's the reason. You don't always have to address issues like whether a mental health disturbance or something like that with a Garda presence or something like that. Something like this, you know, it's like we now have a night mayor, for want of a better word, in the city. So somebody who could be the person. Now, Ray's just started, and he's literally just started, and some of the stuff that happened around Culture Night was partly to do with him, not this event, because I don't think this is an official Culture Night event.
Stuff, wasn't it?
Yeah, the late night outdoor stuff. Obviously, there's a difference here when all of those things have, you know, security and, you know, event management plans, all these kind of things. They're different kettles of fish. But point is, if somebody has a problem, this is why somebody like that exists. The night manager, or the what are they calling him? What are they calling him?
Nightmare.
No, it's not the nightmare.
Yeah,
I don't know
it
what it's
is
called.
the nightmare.
Is it? Okay. Okay. Yeah, it's like they are the person to talk to about this instead of barreling in and like sorting it out with a baton. You know what I mean? That's kind of where we're at now.
Yeah.
Because
like I just to add, I just got off the phone with someone who was there, and she said that she was there 1 second and everything was vibey, and then literally 2 seconds later a rush of guards came down, and she thought that someone had been stabbed or something, because it was so dramatic and so over the top. She was actually involved in some of the stuff going on in the area, and she got out of there because she had some staff with her that she was afraid for them, and she like wanted to get them to safety. Like, can you imagine like the fear that spread because of that, and how it could have been handled? And sure, let me just say this, like, you know, if you're doing something that you're not supposed to and the guards kind of like have to move you along, like, of course you should be cooperating with the guards. But you can tell that there was a lot of fear and a lot of threat, and these kids that were at it were just acting emotionally and just going like, what the hell, we are just having a good time on Culture Night like everybody else. And that's why I don't think anyone is saying like, oh, you know, like giving a big finger to the Síochána as a whole, but we want to know why they acted like that, and why did it end violently. And if it wasn't racial, then like we need a good reason. I think that's what people want. They really want to know where that came from and what they're going to do differently next time, and some sort of, you know, action about those decision-making processes when it comes to certain demographics.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think it's just really worthwhile having these conversations again, because it's easy to dismiss them in a way. Not dismiss them, but it's easy to kind of go, well, what can I do? And that's the main thing, isn't it? Like for people like myself and yourself who are in the music industry or in the culture industry in Ireland, and who want to see our peers, people of color who are our peers, like feel safe and have the same opportunities as us. It doesn't feel fair to not address that. So, I mean, there's no one answer to all this, obviously.
No.
It's just really opening up a space for people to talk about this a bit more, to understand where they're coming from, because, like you said, that time where we were very showing solidarity has passed, and for a lot of people, it needs to be brought up again and be reminded that this is an ongoing thing. It's not something, and especially in you know, in Irish political landscapes and the social landscapes, because of what's happening, you know, because of the rise of the far right now, and we need to counteract that. And
we do.
So I know there's been some talks recently about sort of like events that might happen to show solidarity, stuff like that. Maybe there will be more of those soon, but you know, it's like racism is much more commonplace that we're seeing because of online largely. You're seeing a lot more of it, but you're also seeing it brazenly. You're seeing it in the streets as well. So there's a lot to be done. There's a lot to talk about.
And I think as well, like one of just just again, when I was speaking to friends about it, it's to remember that, racism exists every single day in Ireland in different ways, and it shows up in subtle ways. And then on Friday, it felt like a much more obvious display of racism, whether it was a subconscious thing or not. I think a lot of people of color want white people who don't understand, who think like, everything is grand and daisy, except for some of the far right protests in Ireland, like that. It's not. And to just, if you can take the time, if you do care about this, if you want to be an ally and you want to be truly like anti-racist, then to look into these microaggressions, check yourself, do some research, go to events that show solidarity. And then again, if you're a brand or a business and you feel like taking action, don't just have, your poster child or tokenistic, like, oh, look, we're helping Black people, and then not do anything about it ever again. Like it needs to be consistent work and consistent conversations in order for us to see change.
I want to give the final word to Silent G, who had this to say about what people can do.
My biggest thing about it is I spoke out a lot on my social media because the main thing for me is just our white counterparts really need to speak up now. I feel like this is the perfect time for like our white counterparts to not, or non-POCs to not, I guess, shy away. Or even I remember when I was still kind of in a daze after what happened, because I literally just got back from New York that morning, and I've been thinking to myself the past year, whether I want to leave this country or not, because of little things like this, or little guidelines that I'd have to abide by to be able to do certain things. And then coming back and then this happening, I was kind of like, oh, that's kind of the final straw. I need to kind of like plan my exit now. But yeah.
Like not that you have the answer, but like, is there anything you can say that people like myself can do, or anything that like you say our counterparts?
Yeah, I guess for now it's literally just spreading awareness. It's literally just not shying away from, I guess, sharing a story, not shying away from not making certain jokes, not shying away, Like I remember when I was in the days and I like kind of went away to just kind of gather myself after everything that happened, and I bumped into a couple of people, and the mentality that a lot of people have, it's kind of worrying, because I bumped into some people that I knew. And one of them, the first thing that he said was, oh, did he incite something? And I was like, wait, what? That's not even what I'm talking about. Or they're constantly asking, oh, yeah, but why would they do that? Or like, did you guys do anything? It's like, no, guys, like we wouldn't be here if that was the case. You know what I mean? It's the automatic thing of, oh no, there's no way that the guys would just do that to you guys. And no, we really wouldn't be here if that was the case. So I guess the thing is just kind of unlearning things, learning new things, not being quiet, speaking out. That's, yeah.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy to see if you could save when you bundle your home and auto policies. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary, not available in all states.
Thanks for listening to the 909 podcast. If you like what we do, why not consider supporting us at patreon.com/909.